Hey, how's it going, all? Just want to do a video on losing all hope. And so there's a YouTube channel. So I basically have like two, YouTube channels. One of them I post like all this quote unquote serious stuff under the mind of God, and I have another one that's just under my own name. And I subscribe to like more lighthearted things like prank shows and all the golf things that like Golfholics and Be Better Golf and all these different channels, and some stuff related to like dating and self development and all that. So on that side of me, I guess, or on that YouTube channel, I follow this channel called Losing All Hope Was Freedom. It's this guy Andrew Hales who does like or did kind of pranks and stuff, but his version of pranks are kind of unique in the sense that it's definitely more of like the Office kind of vibe. Like he's mocking people who do pranks, and he's like almost mocking sort of social structures and all that kind of stuff. So it's very dry, it's extremely sarcastic, it's self-amusement and all that kind of stuff, and slightly dark too, which I think obviously if you follow this channel you'll see maybe why I appreciate it. But to me, I think that Losing All Hope Was Freedom. I believe that's from like a Brad Pitt movie. He explained where that title came from. So his channel is called LAHWF. And to me, I just wanted to use that phrase as like, kind of, I guess, a title or talking point for this dialogue is that I would say in the last like little while, I can't really define it, but maybe in the last 5 or 6 months, like, so my journey into all these conspiracy theories started, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Lot of it was Russian vids, and then being someone who has, a background in Christianity and the Bible, I sort of caught on pretty quick, and it resonated with me almost right away. And so that was sort of the downward spiral. But in a way, it was a downward spiral in the sense that I was, kind of understanding more and more, why there is evil in the world, but then also some amount of joy in the sense that now at least there's a narrative, even if it ended up being incorrect. So there was a lot of sort of, hope or joy from learning that, even if it's learning that I've been deceived for a majority of my life, if not all of my life. And so, that's, through over time, it started with all the numerology and all the encoding, and then he has flat earth, and then, just thinking about it more, and then the biblical references, and then seeing the community grow and grow. It made sense, it fit, and it's been only reaffirmed since then. So, but I would say really in the last, like, especially with this latest job that I have, and now I've left voluntarily to go part-time because I was bored. Nothing really sort of evil at the job, but this to me was sort of the last straw, this is the sort of final, most likely, stint for me in corporate America, just because my resume for the last like 4 or 5 jobs have been a year or less, and a lot of them, much less. And so I'm definitely not seeking pity. I'm just kind of explaining, my story. Nothing I can do to change it. It's just my physiology. I can't go into a job and be bored or just sit there and, just play along, or just say stupid things or say nothing at all, or do things that are not creative or whatever, and just kind of go there at 8 and leave at 5. I mean, it's just, to me, it's a very practical thing. It's very difficult to kill time. It's hard for me to kill time even, at home, and because the weather's not nice every day. I can't play golf every day, and I literally couldn't play golf anyway every day because, like, my body is sore, and I don't love golf that much. So it's hard enough killing time, even outside of an office environment. So that was, one of the main things. But also, I was also at that point seeing, a trend, in the corporate world, and I get it now. And it's highly unlikely, the next experience, which I doubt will happen, would be any different. And I'm sort of at peace with that, and that's sort of what I wanted to share. I'm sure a lot of people are out there going through what I've gone through, They might not know, that this whole thing is coordinated and will not change. Whether you believe it's coordinated or not, it's not going to get better, certainly in the short term, in my opinion, at all. Because the very people that are being enslaved are sort of, supporting this, and allowing it to survive, so to speak, this mindset, this enslavement. And so, it's just, I've come to understand that. And I think just me being sort of a competitive person in sports and in general, and that's kind of what a lot of us are taught is virtuous at a young age, is to win, work, and all that. Come out on top. Don't let anybody take advantage of you and all that kind of stuff. And so, I've had to sort of deal with that and, come to grips with the fact that, I've lost, and it's okay. And it's there's nothing I can do. I've done another video where I've credited God with the victory. It's like, I don't blame people anymore. Even if this last job was nasty and my boss was quote unquote after me, which he wasn't, I wouldn't have blamed him. I would have still left sooner, but I wouldn't have been angry, because in a way it would have made it even kind of easier for me to sort of write off this whole thing, because then, the last job would have just been very, very similar to all the other ones, and then that kind of thing. So it made it a little bit harder to leave, just because the job was, for the most part, just boring. It wasn't that it was overly political. I think there was some aspects of politics, I just didn't pay attention to them. I was just oblivious to them, and it actually made me slightly more of an asset, because people were just like, why is this guy doesn't really seem to care, and like, they obviously don't know maybe the full story. I did mention to a few people that, about flat earth, so they know that I'm off the mainstream, but the extent of my channel and all that, I don't think that they know that unless they search for me. But it sort of worked in my favor, and kind of allowed me to stay there a little bit longer, and even in this time right now doing this part-time work, because they liked the work that I was doing. They didn't want me to leave, but I literally just couldn't kill that time every day. It was just very, very painful for someone with my personality. And so this concept of like losing all hope was freedom. In a way, it has been for me. It's like it's obviously tough, because when you're 37 years old, you think that you're gonna live, quote unquote full life and all that. But I do remember at a younger age, I've mentioned a few times to people that I just had a feeling I never could see myself live a long life, and I wouldn't say it like every day, but I sort of had a sense that I never saw myself like growing old, or with a family and kids and all that. It just, that thought was never something that really stuck in my mind. And that's probably one of the main reasons why I've not had children, and definitely obviously at this point don't plan on it, but I will not. But so I think that it's sort of been there, in the background in my mind anyway, but it still takes it takes some getting used to, knowing that the likelihood of me being alive beyond 3 years is, I would say, extremely unlikely. Again, I don't have full control over this. This is what I've realized more and more now. I would say it's a less than 5% chance. And within the next 3 years, likely 95% that I will, experience my last day in this body, I guess, or however you say it. And so, that's a different mentality, going about life. I think that especially over the last 4 or 5, 6 months, it's really kind of sunk deeper, into my mind, just because, looking at not wanting to work really in corporate America, and honestly not, even if I wanted to, I'd struggle to find another job after this one. This, I would say, is sort of my last chance, because the 3 or 4 roles before that I already left very quickly. So, it's harder and harder to explain to the next employer why you keep leaving. It's like they know that you're a flight risk, and you're not vibrating well with the corporate world, and all that. It's risky for a manager to hire somebody like me, just because they know that I don't really have anything to lose, because I don't seem to care, and that's a very bad thing for a manager. Sometimes you can get hired for that reason, which is what happened to me at Bed Bath. They sort of knew I was a loose cannon, and they needed somebody like that, so I was brought in. But most of the time, that's not like a thing that is likely to land you, or rule and stuff. So, and it makes sense. I have no issues with it. It is what it is. I did not make this system. I do not blame hiring managers or anything anymore. It's just, I think that's the element. It's kind of what I want to get at. Is brought me a tremendous amount of peace knowing that the whole system is, from my vantage point, I don't even want to, it's corrupt, but for me, it's just not a playing field that I feel comfortable playing on or living on, and it's not even necessarily that people are at this moment, explicitly attacking me or doing evil towards me, which I'm obviously thankful for. But in some ways, it would make it much easier, though, if that were the case. Like, again, I have tremendous amount of sympathy and to some extent admiration for people who go through a lot and persevere, because just, my personality, I wouldn't, I just, and it's like, boredom is one thing. You just got to pass time. It's possible to do that. But, being like tormented, for example, for some people who are, that would not make sense to me. I wouldn't see who's winning in that kind of arrangement, to like constantly be tortured. Or like to constantly be uncomfortable, for days and days and years and years and years. I understand, there's going to be ups and downs, but I would never sort of put up with, any kind of persistent discomfort and stuff. So, it's amazing to me what people can endure, and credit to them for finding a way to cope. But that's just not my personality. So, it's just from a financial perspective, purely from a financial perspective, even if I did have a great job and I loved it, there's still a very real chance that, it could be downsized or, something could happen. People, even with quote unquote job security, are realizing, it's not maybe as secure as they think. GE CEO, the last one, just came in, got kicked out. There's a new guy in there. They're apparently declaring GE as like, their bonds like in junk bond status. So like, it's like, even at the CEO, at the high level of a major corporation like that, there's no job security for that new CEO, not even whether he does a good or a bad job. The company may not exist. Called going concern in accounting, when they have that much debt and not enough cash to meet those demands. And so if all their short-term debt was called, they wouldn't have enough cash to pay. And so, that leads to an identity crisis for that company. So job security really doesn't exist even at the very, very top. And that's becoming more and more obvious. And obviously personalities like mine who just get bored or uncomfortable with someone kind of peering over their shoulder and to some extent wanting them to not succeed and stuff. I'm not comfortable with that. And so I think the amazing thing, the thing that has brought me peace, is that I don't blame anybody. I don't blame, my family or like the economy even, or the people, in these corporations and stuff, the government even. It's like, now I'm very, very resolute, very firm foundation, knowing that, that God has orchestrated this, because it's so complex and honestly, in many ways, it doesn't make sense. It's just not logical. It's just pure chaos. People are not acting, in my opinion, logically, and especially the people that are being enslaved. You're just not allowed to talk about evils of corporations when it's blatantly obvious that they are. And you can talk about it, but you have to be very diplomatic about it. And so to me, the only way that this would be in place is for something else to occur that is greater than this. And these entities would be serving a special purpose. And to me, it's, like I've said in many other videos, it's to usher in the mark of the beast. And so the way I've kind of thought about, my life is definitely came to the realization that it's on the order of months, not years and decades, for sure. It could be 12 months, it could be 24 months. To me, it's highly likely, just from my financial perspective, it'll be more than that. At the absolute most, I could see 3 years, but even then, I only have enough savings for like a year and a half, really. Could stretch it to 2 if I live like a miser. But I'm the type now where I'm less conscious of spending, and I kind of press God a little bit in that way, where it's like, if he wants me to continue on, I will only live under certain circumstances, certain conditions, and if they're not met, I'm not going to boohoo about it, because really it would only allow me to maybe live, like I said, a few months longer, maybe a year longer, if I scrounged and stuff. So to me, I don't see any point of that, and it doesn't make a difference. I mean, I'm gonna die at some point, so it's not, especially with the way the world is right now, I have no incentive, no energy, no enthusiasm to politic, to scratch and claw to a longer existence in a place that, if it's not hell, it has a lot of similarities. So I don't I guess from my channel, if anybody follows, they obviously know that it's doomsday. But I think there's a lot of sort of hope or peace, knowing that there's nothing. It's like the fight has been fought. It's like I've lost. I concede. I can't fight. I can't scrounge. I can't make a job that I'll love and have a family and live happily ever after. That's not happening, and that's okay. And in my opinion, only God could orchestrate this kind of a deception. And it's 1-0. He won, and I'm not getting any half points, or I'm not getting a point. So it's cool. I just have moved on from that, and I think at this point, my goal will really just, in many ways, to warn people that I think that there's a chip coming, and it would behoove you to think about at least not taking that. And also for those people who have gone through, and bounced around corporate America and really like a pinball like I have, to at least hear my story and know that it's not your fault. Highly likely it's not your fault. I did not go into any of those roles malicious, trying to chop people down, talk behind their back or anything like that. That's not my personality, and I'm not saying I'm a great person, but I've just never been like that, where I just like learning. I like working on teams. I like, working on stuff that's cool, which is, I think, a majority, if not all people have that in them, to work for something interesting. So it's not unique. And that's just has not been my experience. And so the more I look around and see, and hear other people's stories, I'm starting to see that it's common. And obviously I've been in these companies and see what other people are going through, and I know that it is common, and it's just people are not able to talk about it, which again, to me, further reaffirms that this ship is sinking. It's because the very people on it are just watching it sink. They're not saying anything, and they just feel like it's a sign of weakness, or, in my opinion, God is not allowing them to redirect the course of this ship sinking. And so it's his will. And I think that in many ways, the last 6 months and even the last year, even working and having few stressful moments, but not a lot, has been probably the most amount of peace that I've had in my entire life, because I know that there's really nothing else somebody can take away from me. I think the only thing that I fear now, that I mentioned in a past video, is like a sexual assault from a man or something. That's like the worst sort of thing I could think of, or being attacked or beaten or something like that, and having to deal with physical pain and all that. But as far as the goings on of the world and people saying things or ridicule or all that, losing a job, losing income and all that, I've already, I left this last job voluntarily, so I was ready to live off of my fumes, basically. So those things basically, they cannot hurt me, and I think that it's a very powerful position, and obviously with those other things, if I'm, careful and, just try and be responsible where I am, during the day and who I'm around, it minimizes the risk of any of those kind of violent acts. But, anything is possible, obviously, so we need God's mercy for whatever number of days we have left. But to me, those kind of extreme things are really the only things that I kind of fear. It's or worry about, and I obviously don't worry about them every minute of the day, but especially when I see more and more stuff about these shootings and all these hoaxes and just this intensifying and the economy sort of screeching to a halt. It's like people are just people. They're going to get desperate, even if they're faithful and they're not necessarily malicious. They may do things just like I've done things throughout my life that I wish I hadn't. So I don't really know if this video is really going to be of any use to people, but it's just for anybody maybe who's kind of gotten to the point where either just they can't find a job or they're working in a job and they just kind of see it not secure, and just looking at their bills and doing the math in their head and all that kind of stuff, and the numbers don't look good. And it's the same for a lot of corporations, like just going back to the GE example, the numbers for that corporation just don't look good, like negative net income, over leveraged, which just means too much debt, and scrounging. They're gonna have to start selling some of their companies. They own Baker Hughes, an oil company that they acquired not too long ago. So they're just kind of, those corporations are doing in many ways what I'm doing, just on obviously a much bigger scale financially. Is that if you're not having an income, or you're running like a negative income, like a deficit, then you're gonna have to start selling stuff. So for me, the next thing in the next 5 or 6 months, maybe sooner, I'll either have to decide to sell my car or my money from my 401k, which is in America, it's like your retirement. So again, I don't say this for pity, because I've like I said, this whole thing is out of my hands, but just as a way to kind of explain my situation in case somebody else is going through something like this, and possibly even worse than this. My days are numbered as well. And so I mean, it's kind of it's an amazing thing. It's logical to me in the sense that I know that I will not live forever, so there's nothing I can do between now and, let's say I did live till I was 85, that could make a God, or to make my life any more meaningful or memorable if I die and there is no God. So to me, if God doesn't exist, it doesn't matter if I die today or 50 years from now. It really won't make a difference, because my body will just decay, wherever it is, and that's the end of it. But in the case that there is a God, then we all of us will fall into that entity's hands, and I would have no issues doing that sooner rather than later, because I have no idea how it could possibly be worse than living in the system that we have here.